There are viral courtroom moments, and then there are viral courtroom legends. This wasn't just another case of a privileged guy acting like the rules don't apply to him. This was the full Shakespearean collapse of egos served with a side of irony, garnished with poetic justice, and absolutely scorched by one phone call that no one saw coming. Let's set the scene. Ethan Walsh, 26 years old. Cocky, entitled. The kind of guy who probably refers to waitstaff by their first names and thinks tipping. 10% is generous walks into Rose's Mexican restaurant. It's not some high-profile spot with valet parking and overpriced ceviche. It's a neighborhood gem, family-owned, real food, real people, and real consequences. Ethan orders $120 worth of food. And no, that's not a typo. He goes full tasting menu, mode chips, queso, 3 entrees, top shelf margaritas. The kind of order that screams, my dad's a congressman. I don't need to look at prices. But when the check comes, suddenly the food was substandard. Suddenly he's a harsh critic of tamales. Suddenly the man who just inhaled half the menu decides he shouldn't have to pay dot now. Here's where things go from tacky to radioactive. Roberto Martinez, the restaurant owner, and, oh yeah, a Vietnam War veteran asks him to pay the bill or leave. Respectfully. No yelling. No drama, just facts. And Ethan shoves him. Shoves a 70-year-old man who's been through actual war because he doesn't want to pay for some tacos. But wait, it gets worse. Dot, instead of apologizing or backing down, Ethan reaches into his wallet and pulls out his dad's congressional business card, like it's a Ono reverse card. Holds it up like it's a badge of immunity, and then he drops the line. You really want to do this? I'll call my father. Oh, my God. Cue the collective cringe of every witness in that restaurant. That's the kind of line that feels like it belongs in a bad teen drama. Not real life. But there Ethan is, using his father's title like a human shield, thinking that flashing power means he's untouchable. Spoiler. He's not. Fast forward to the courtroom. Judge Frank Caprio is presiding. Yes, that Judge Caprio, the beloved no-nonsense Grandpa Meets Gavel type who went viral for his heart and humor. But today, he's not laughing. He listens to the whole case. The restaurant incident, the shove, the unpaid bill, the card, the threat, and then in what might go down as one of the most savage, yet gracefully delivered mic drop moves in courtroom history, Judge Caprio says, let's call your father now. Silence. Absolute silence. Ethan's face reportedly went white. He muttered something about how that wouldn't be necessary. But Caprio, already dialing, 3 rings. Then Congressman James Walsh, no assistant. No buffer, no warning. Judge Caprio calmly explains the incident. No embellishments, just the truth. And the reaction? Congressman Walsh doesn't even pause to defend his son. He doesn't ask for leniency. He doesn't even hesitate. He says, on speaker, in front of the entire courtroom, that is not behavior I condone. I'm ashamed. My son had no right to use my name to intimidate anyone. Let the court proceed however it sees fit. There it is. The instant and total destruction of the ego Ethan had walked in. With dot, because when your own father, a sitting congressman, goes on record to say you should be punished and that he won't lift a finger to protect you, that's a wrap in the courtroom. You could practically hear jaws hitting the floor. But Caprio wasn't done. He looked at Ethan, still stunned, still digesting the sound of his father's disappointment echoing through the speakers, and handed down the sentence. Restitution to Roberto. Jail time. And in an inspired touch of poetic justice, community service with Vietnam veterans. That last part, that was intentional. That was symbolic. You don't shove a veteran and walk away. You go spend time with people who sacrificed more than you can imagine. You listen. You serve. You learn. And to Ethan's credit, something shifted dot at first. He was stiff, defensive, probably still clinging to the last shreds of his inherited identity. But then something unexpected happened. The veterans started talking, sharing stories, teaching lessons, and somewhere in those long volunteer hours, the real work of change began. After serving his sentence and completing his community service, Ethan asked to meet with Roberto again. Not with lawyers, not with cameras, just man to man. He apologized. Not in a polished, rehearsed, PR-approved statement, but in real words. He didn't excuse his behavior. He didn't say, I was having a bad day. He said, I was wrong. I disrespected you. I abused my privilege. And I'm sorry. And then he did something no one expected. He asked Roberto if he could work at Rose's for free to earn his respect, not just his forgiveness. And again, Roberto, who had every right to say no, said yes. So Ethan started scrubbing floors, taking out trash, waiting tables, learning how to keep his head down and his ears open. And slowly, something changed. He became less of a punchline and more of a person. A young man trying to rebuild his character from the inside out, not for applause, but because he finally understood what it meant to be humble. He wasn't introduced as Congressman Walsh's son anymore. He was just Ethan, the guy who made a massive mistake and decided to own it. And that's more impressive than any title on a business card, because in the end, this wasn't about politics or courtrooms or headlines. It was about character and what happens when someone is forced to stand on their own 2 feet with no daddy to save them. So the next time someone says, do you know who I am? Just remember Ethan Walsh, because now we do, and he had to mop floors to get there. Drop a comment below. Should more people in power have to answer the call like Congressman Walsh did? Would you have forgiven Ethan or made him scrub every dish until next Christmas? And don't forget to subscribe, because in a world full of fragile egos, courtroom chaos, and real redemption arcs, we'll be right here, watching it all unfold. You've thought it ended with Ethan working at Rose's, right? That after the heartfelt apology and the mopping montage, he'd fade into a quiet redemption arc? Nope. This saga had more chapters than a prestige HBO miniseries. Because real growth doesn't come in one dramatic moment. It happens in 1,000 tiny humiliations. And how you respond to each one. Let's talk about the days that followed Ethan's return to Rose's, his second return. Not as the guy who dined and dashed, but as the guy who was now clocking in for a shift. And not just doing easy jobs either. Roberto didn't hand him a fake manager title or let him hide in the back. No, he put Ethan on the front lines. Register, refill station, dining room cleanup. And worst of all, the bathroom rotation. It was deliberate, not cruel, just real. Roberto's way of saying, if you want to be forgiven, you start from the bottom, like everyone else. And that's when it hit Ethan. This wasn't about one bad decision. This wasn't about some viral courtroom clip or his dad's political blowback. This was about his entire identity. Because for his whole life, Ethan's name had done the heavy lifting. Doors open. Heads nodded. People assumed he was smart, capable, important. But now, he had to earn every ounce of trust from scratch. While people whispered about that courtroom moment behind his back, and it was whispered. At first, customers gave him side-eye. Some avoided his tables. Others made a point of tipping everyone except him. One woman actually slid a $5 bill across the table and said, give this to Roberto. He's the reason I'm still eating here. Brutal, but fair, and Ethan took it. Every glance, every comment, every insult veiled his advice. He took it all without clapping back. No more business card. No more excuses. Just a guy in an apron learning that forgiveness doesn't come with a TIMESTA. Then came the real test. A news crew small time. Local station, but still showed up one afternoon. Word had gotten out that the congressman's son, who used a business card as a threat, was now cleaning tables for the man he assaulted. They wanted footage. Maybe a quick interview. Ethan stepped outside, politely, and said, no statement. No quotes. No grandstanding about how much he'd changed. Let the work speak for itself, he told the reporter. This isn't a comeback story. It's just ... what I owe. That, quote, ironically, did make the news, and that's when the shift really began. The customers who'd been skeptical, they softened. Roberto's regulars started leaving notes on receipts like, keep going, and you've earned a second chance. A couple of them even asked for Ethan's section on purpose. And then get this, one of the Vietnam veterans he'd done community service with came in for lunch, alone, quiet, sat in a corner. Ethan recognized him immediately and went over, nervous, ready for the cold shoulder. Instead, the vet stood up, gave him a pat on the shoulder, and said, you're doing good. Just don't stop. Let's pause on that, because it's one thing to be told by a judge that you've got to make things right. It's another thing entirely for someone you once disrespected by association to come back and say, I see you trying. That moment, that was the real turning point. And word made its way back to Congressman Walsh. Now, let's talk about him for a second. Because while Ethan was busy rebuilding from the ground up, his father was catching hell from political circles. Opponents were using the incident to attack his parenting. Pundits were questioning his family values. Some accused him of setting up the call in advance for good optics. Because, of course they did. Politics never wastes a good scandal. But Congressman Walsh didn't budge. He issued exactly one statement. My son is accountable for his actions. Not because of who I am, but in spite of it. I raised him to understand that privilege is not a shield. If he forgot that, then it's my job not to cover for him, but to help him remember it. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't defensive. It was solid, and honestly, people respected it. Because whether you liked his politics or not, you had to admit he chose ethics over ego. He chose principle over press coverage. Back at Rosa's, Ethan had now been working for 3 months. Still unpaid. Still showing up. He'd become part of the rhythm of the place, helping with inventory, offering to pick up extra shifts, even teaching himself a few of Roberto's recipes. And Roberto? He stopped micromanaging. Started trusting him. One night, after the dinner rush, Roberto pulled him aside. Sat him down at a booth. Same one Ethan had originally tried to escape his bill from. You know, Roberto said, I never thought I'd see the day I'd say this, but I'd hire you. For real. Ethan looked stunned. I mean it, Roberto said. You're not the kid who came in here thinking he could get away with anything. You're the guy who stayed. And that hit harder than any punishment or public shaming ever could, because it wasn't just about fixing what was broken. It was about becoming someone who wouldn't break it in the first place. Now, let's fast forward one more time. 6 months later. Ethan was no longer working at Rosa's, not because he bailed, but because he was moving on. He decided to apply for a job with a local nonprofit one that supports veterans, transitioning back to civilian life. And the kicker? He listed Rosa's as a reference. Roberto gave him one. Said, Ethan Walsh started here with a mess to clean up. He left better than he came in. Boom. No amount of name dropping could have gotten him that only work. Real, honest, backbreaking, soul-humbling work. So, yeah. Ethan Walsh started this journey thinking a business card could bend reality, that the rules didn't apply to him. That reputation was a substitute for character. But the moment the courtroom went silent and that speakerphone clicked on, his world cracked wide open. And from that crack, he built something better. So the next time someone tries to flex their connections or bluff their way out of accountability, tell them about Ethan. Tell them about the judge who called the bluff. Tell them about the dad who didn't cave. Tell them about the veteran who opened the door only when the work had earned it, because titles fade, influence shifts, but integrity leaves receipts. What do you think? Would you have accepted Ethan's apology? Did Judge Caprio go too far or just far enough? And what's your take on Congressman Walsh's response? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear it all. And if you live for stories where ego gets knocked down and replaced with actual growth, Hit that subscribe button because in a world where people are quick to flex power and even quicker to dodge responsibility, this one reminded us that the real flex is showing up after the fall and staying dot by now. You're probably thinking, all right, that has to be the end. But hold on to your moral compass. Because this story still has a few final twists, and they're the kind that really stick with you. The kind that make you sit back and think, wait, was that redemption arc actually real? Because here's the thing about comebacks. Most of them, completely fake. Prepackaged, rebranded, sanitized for public consumption. We've all seen it. A celebrity does something awful, disappears for 6 months, drops a crying apology video filmed in a minimalist living room, and voila, welcome back to the red carpet. But Ethan's journey, it didn't follow that playbook. It wasn't fast. It wasn't shiny. And it definitely wasn't designed to win back public favor. If anything, it was kind of awkward, quiet, almost uncomfortable in how slow and messy it was, and that's how you know it was probably real. Let's talk about the aftermath of the aftermath. After Roses, after the local nonprofit hired Ethan, after Roboto signed off on that reference. Letter with a quiet nod of respect that no card-carrying legacy kid could have ever bought. Ethan started working behind the scenes. No spotlight. No Instagram page filled with filtered community work selfies. Just hours spent helping veterans with resumes, assisting at job fairs, and doing the paperwork that no one wants to do, but everyone needs. It wasn't glamorous. But Ethan didn't flinch. At one point, someone asked him why he didn't go into politics like his dad. And his answer? Because I haven't earned the right to represent anyone but myself yet. Let that sink in. That's the kind of clarity that doesn't come from PR coaching. That comes from scrubbing toilets, getting humiliated in public, and choosing to stay in the room when your ego tells you to run. But let's be real. The internet didn't just forget what he did. Oh no, the meme stuck around. The courtroom clip of Judge Caprio dialing that number, it became reaction GIF gold. You probably saw it used for everything from when your boss catches you lying to when karma hits mid-lie. It became culture. And Ethan knew it. He knew people were still laughing at him. Knew his name would probably always be followed by a Google suggestion that included taco incident. But here's what he didn't do. He didn't spend energy trying to erase it. He didn't obsess over clearing his name. He just got on with his life, and that ironically is what started to shift the public perception. Again, because there's something compelling about someone who doesn't fight the narrative with noise, but with consistency. Quiet growth, timed out, and it paid off in the strangest, most unexpected way. One night, months later, Congressman James Walsh was speaking at a town hall. The topic was veterans services, and he was giving his usual polished, professional stump speech. But then someone in the crowd, some random local, raised their hand and said, "Hey, isn't your son the one who tried to use your business card to get out of paying for dinner?" The whole room tensed. You could practically hear the collective inhale. And the congressman? He nodded. Calmly said, "Yes, and I am proud of him for how he handled what came next." And the room? It didn't erupt in boos. It clapped. He got humiliated. He got dragged. He got called out on speakerphone by his own father. In what might still be the single greatest "don't call my dad" moment in recorded courtroom history, but he didn't deny it. He didn't rage against it. He didn't try to weaponize victimhood. He just showed up to mop the floor, day after day, until it wasn't about the mess he made anymore. It was about the kind of man who stayed to clean it up. That's the real redemption. And the best part, there was no grand finale. No TED Talk, no Netflix deal. Just a guy who used to be a headline, now doing the kind of work that actually matters, and maybe that's the only comeback that counts. All right, your turn. You've made it this far, and I know you have thoughts. Would you have forgiven Ethan? Did his dad do the right thing by airing that call in court, or was it too much? Is public humiliation the best teacher? Or is there another way? Drop your comments below. Be honest. Be ruthless. Or be the Roberto of the conversation and offer some unexpected grace. And if you love watching stories where power gets checked, privilege gets wrecked, and humanity actually wins the long game, you know what to do? Tap that subscribe button because we're just getting started. There's always another meltdown, another comeback, another headline that turns into a lesson. And we'll be right here for all of it. Stay sharp, stay humble, and whatever you don't hand someone your dad's business card like it's a free pass, you just might end up on speakerphone